Hi, this is Bennett Santana, and welcome to the GoldMind Business Podcast, where we're going to empower you to transform, scale, and thrive. I'll be your guide on this journey of purpose, clarity, and action. And today, we're talking about the power of change, moving from vision to action. And so, change is both challenging, but it's essential for your professional and personal and spiritual growth. And in fact, I've helped thousands of people with their goals, and there are some people who I've helped and they have an immediate change in their lives. But then there's others that I've worked with them for many years and they just can't make the change happen. And so I want to dive deeper into what motivates change, the barriers that hold us back, and I want to have a transformative exercise today to help you kind of visualize your actions in the future. And so I encourage you to pull out a sheet of paper or move to a new page in your journal for today, because today is going to be more of an interactive session. And so if you're driving, just, obviously you could have, play this back later at a coffee shop, which I encourage you to do. You're going to listen to it and kind of think through it, but get ready. It's just going to be exciting. And so there's a verse in the Bible, Psalms, that kind of relates to what I'm going to be talking to today that will highlight why it's so important to do what I'm doing with you guys today. And so the verse is Psalm 90, verse 12, and it says, "So teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." And so this verse is really a prayer for us to live intentionally, counting the days that we have and using them wisely to live with purpose. And so motivation begins with this hope, but it's clearly sustained by our clarity, our action, and our faith. And this is what I want to explore today, is to number, really value with intention your days. And so my first question is, what drives motivation, right? What drives motivation? And so there are two things, primary forces that drive motivation. And I could just sum it up to between two things: pain and pleasure. Those are the two drivers that move us in life. We move away from things that bring us pain, and we move ourselves to areas that bring us pleasure in the long run. And so, just give you an idea, I used to drink, and I used to drink a lot. I used to smoke. And one of the things that I was blessed to be able to participate was in smoke stoppers. And what did smoke stoppers do? They engaged us visually. They engaged our smell, because they actually would have us put our finger in, they would say, bring a bag of your, cigarette butts. And I'm like, whoa, okay, so I brought them. Then they would play this music, and we'd have to put our hands in there and just smell how nasty it was. Then they basically said, listen, let's figure out how many packs you're smoking a day, and let's multiply that. And it turned out to be like, for me, it was like in the $11,000 range, especially now. I'm sure it's even higher than that, but it was quite some money. Let's say 6,000 to 11,000, when you start adding up all that. And so, and they started to kind of say, look, this ain't pleasurable. Now you think it's kind of cool, to have a cup of coffee and smoke a cigarette. Hey, but when that burns your tie, when that burns your suit. I remember one time I was driving on the highway, and the cigarette butt through the wind just, the cigarette fell in the seat. And I'm like, looking for it as I'm driving, and I actually drove into the emergency lane by accident. And when I pulled out, I realized, wait a minute, there was a car behind me, and it was parked in that emergency lane, and I had missed them. I had missed them by seconds, and I didn't realize that because I was just searching. So when you start to look at things that we do that bring discomfort, that you want to make a change. The other thing is that I remember at the company I was in, I had some issues, and I wanted to get some basic therapy, really. And I went up there and talked with them. They were like, hey, okay, take a seat, take a look at this. And they filled out a questionnaire, and they put me in front of a video of alcoholism. I didn't think I was near being an alcoholic, But when they covered that video, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's like a low threshold to become an alcoholic, and I was already there. I was at the blackout, where I drink and have blackouts. I was constantly drinking. And they basically like laid out what your brain was doing and how certain chemicals are being depleted and being replaced by alcohol. And I said to myself, that is not a place where I want to go. That's not where I want to go. And I realized, hey, that's going to be Painville. That's going to bring consequences. This cigarette smoking, this drinking, that's going to bring consequences in my life. And I didn't want to have that in my life. Because everything, it's funny, like when you start dating, you date. If you're smoking and drinking, you date women who drink and smoke. That's how, because that's, you're smoking, so you're looking for another smoker. And so, every decision was based on those habits, right? Where I sat in a restaurant, where I was the train car allowed smoking in the vestibules, right? And so you look at those things. So our motivation is fueled, like, again, two things. It's the discomfort of staying stagnant, and that's recognizing the negative consequences of staying the same. And I recognized those negative consequences when I was smoking and drinking. And I had to think about, what would it produce? What do those actions produce? The poor health, the strained relationships, the instability in my finances. And so this discomfort is what we need to recognize to help us to move away from these harmful patterns and move us toward change. And so what's on the other side? The place of desire where you want to go. And that's for a vision of a better future. So that's the other thing that drives us. We want a rewarding and transformative and active life. That's what we want. We want a better life. Honestly, I want my life to be better as I get older. I want people's lives around me to get better. And so the vision that I wanted to have was, even with the start of my business, was I wanted financial independence. I wanted to improve health. I wanted meaningful relationships. And the vision is what inspires us to move to that level. And so, like I said, motivation is driven by two forces, and it's pain and it's pleasure. It's, you got to be in discomfort for staying stagnant. And you got to have a vision for a better future where you want to go. And that's the clear two things. And like Tony Robbins, he summed it up best. He says, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. Let me repeat that. Change happens when the pain of staying the same. If you stay the same, there's pain, right? Is greater than the pain to change. That's when change happened. And so what I want to ask you right now, what currently is making you uncomfortable? What is happening right now today that said, you know what, I don't like this. I don't like this habit I have. I don't like, I'm gaining weight. You know what, I'm tearing up that bag of chips at night because I'm just so anxious and so forth. I'm not getting good sleep. I'm actually, hey, listen, I'm on my third failed relationship, right? What currently makes you uncomfortable, right? What habits are you doing that just, has an impact in the future? And so, but at the same time, what vision of a better future exists for you? And that'll give you the energy to move forward. What is a vision that you could see yourself if you were changed as another person? And what would that vision? So this is a reflection that I have just in terms of the things that motivate us. So two primary factors, pain and pleasure. And so why do people struggle to change, right? There are many folks that I've worked with struggle with change. Even with discomfort and a vision of the future, lasting change can feel elusive. So let's talk about the barriers that often hold us back from that. Let's talk about that. So one of the reasons why people fail to change is, number one, they don't have clear goals and they feel aimless. And I'll give you an example. Samson, when they cut off, his hair, which symbolized his his basic internal power, his anointing. They cut that off. He allowed that secret to go forth, and they cut that off. He lost his strength. He lost everything that made him powerful. And what did they do? They blinded him. They took out his eyes, and they put him to grind, right? They put him in a circle to grind. And you know what? A lot of us are walking blind that way. We're walking in circles because we just do not, we're in this constant run around kind of thing, going in the same circle without a vision for the future. And we go from job to job, we go from relationship to relationship because we just don't have clear goals. We don't have a clear vision, and we feel like we're just running in place. And and some, yes, I aspire to be a multimillionaire, right? But the one thing is that when it gets down to it, you just don't have clear goals. That's, that lack of clarity. You have to have clear goals, achievable goals, right? So many young people that strive, I want to be a professional basketball player. I want to be I'll give you another one. I want to be an actor. And the number of, I'm talking about, there's no more than probably 1,000 of those jobs that exist in the whole world, probably not even 1,000. And from what I heard, but there's only like 1,000 people in the theater industry that makes more than 150,000. And so you got to have achievable goals. And then when it gets down to it, you got to work on the goals, and almost to the level where you could teach a course on it. That's what I suggest to people. The other thing is there's a fear of failure. What if I fail? That's the one thing is that I hear. What if I fail? What if this goes wrong? What if I lose everything? What if I, end up homeless? What if I end up poor? It's all these failures, that I've had to deal with. What if I start this business? I remember when I cashed out my IRA to start my business. Oh boy, what stuff did I get from my father? He thought I made the greatest mistake in the entire world, and I had to live with that. Hey, you spent all this money, you did this, and you get these naysayers, and they're in your family, right? They're in your chain of command, so to speak, and they're the first ones that are saying, hey, you just failed at that. You failed at that. But you know what? They're not the ones that will reap the reward. It's you. You're the one that reaped the reward, and you know what? You could bless them later. And I had my dad, he called me to Puerto Rico and asked for forgiveness, apologize for what he believed, which was wrong. Because at the end result, it did the fruit of my labor did return. And so a lot of times there's that fear of failure. The fear of failure. Second, it's procrastination. It's waiting for that perfect time. That all prevents progress, especially with the cognitive people out there. Yeah, I find that a lot of the cognitive folks, the super intelligent folks that think a lot, they procrastinate because they're thinking. And I have to say, if you allow 5 minutes to dwell on a decision, it's going to be no every time. And so sometimes you got to make quick decisions in your life. Move, a lot of times when a door had opened up, the next day I had to be in that, in front of that door. I remember I got the opportunity to get my master's degree paid for at DePaul. And the next day I enrolled in my pre-courses. It was a computer science course I had to take, and I was in it the next day. And so you have to kind of master moving your body forward. A body in motion stays in motion, but a body at rest stays at rest. If you're resting, you're going to stay there. And I have to say to those who like to procrastinate, do it now. Repeat that every day. Do it now. 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 Repeat that 100 times in the day. Do it now. Another thing I try to do is don't put it down. Put it away. Don't put it down because I like to leave stuff. Oh, I leave the drawers open, all that kind of stuff. I leave the dog bowls out after I feed the dogs. I leave the plate out, soda soaking, so to speak. And the thing is that you got to say to yourself, hey, don't put it down. Put it away. And the same thing. Hey, do it now. So the other thing is a comfort zone. A lot of times people feel safe. They may be living with their parents. They may be in this situation. I lived with my parents until I was 27. Guess what happened? They moved out on me. They basically moved out. Next thing you know, the house is empty. I'm like, oh, I think I gotta grow up. And so you got to get out of your comfort zone. So I admire people that say, hey, look, I appreciate your hospitality, and all how you supported me, but I got to move out. I got to do this and that. I got to do this on my own. I got to move out of my comfort zone. And that shows a lot. That shows, that you're willing to want to tackle the greater things. And then the other one is short-term focus. A lot of times we want instant gratification over the long-term success. And that sabotages motivation. As I always say, is the greatest problem, many people say this, the greatest problem in the United States is not greed, it's envy. Envy. Where you want something fast, where you want it, as quickly as your neighbor. Guess what? I catch up with my neighbor, and the saying is, they refinance, and they move forward. And so that's the one thing. You don't want instant gratification when it comes to this. You got to be thinking 10, 20, 30 years from now. I talk to young men. I'm like, hey, you need to go to college. A young man that I spoke to about, hey, you need to get you don't have a high school degree? You need to get that right away, right? And you know what? But that instant, desire not to work, I guess, what is that called? I don't know what it is called. It starts with an L, ends with a Y. So the situation is you got to be thinking long term, and you got to be able to make those changes. There's probably a sixth one is that I'm also finding out. It's called the self-sabotage. And this is where you're just not comfortable with moving higher levels. And that's something I'm learning more about. I remember when I built my house and beautiful jacuzzi. I sat in there and I hit that jacuzzi button and all that bubbles were happening at. But you know what? I got in there and I thought the cops were going to come get me. I really did. I thought the cops could. I wasn't comfortable in the level that I achieved. And so you have to be comfortable. You have to be able, that's why they say you should be used to going to very high-end restaurants, high-end hotels, so you could be comfortable with that level. Lyndon B. Johnson, who took over the presidency, he was comfortable. Why? Because he was always around, the White House, and he was very comfortable. So him becoming president was almost a second thought. And so we have to be comfortable with success. And so Winston Churchill says, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. So success is not final, and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And that's the one thing I want to share this with you. It's like in this, like I said, success is not final, and failure is not fatal. And so that's what I want you to be thinking about as we want to move toward change and thinking about what holds us back. And so let's do this. Let's reflect on your current state. So, to begin this journey of change, you must first assess where you are today. So take out your notebook, your journal, and write honestly these 7 categories. And I'll call this the 7 pillars of personal growth. And the 7 pillars of personal growth are your spiritual goals, your financial goals, your self-improvement goals, your professional goals, your health goals, your family goals, and your community goals. Now, I'll go back over there and say, I'll cover what is the spiritual goals. This relates to anything that deals with you as a spiritual person. Now, you may or may not believe in God. I'm not here to, basically push God down your throat, but we are of a class called Homo sapien. Homo is man, sapien spirit. We're a spiritual man. And so no matter what, I encourage you, learn about your spiritual side. I didn't believe in Jesus. I really didn't until I studied that he was actually a historical figure that it cannot be denied, that there was over 500 witnesses of Jesus walking on earth. And so then I had to say, well, if he did walk on earth, then, was really God. And I had to go through that myself. And so under spiritual goals, I had to ask that question, and I'm still asking questions. So under my spiritual goals, you may be your prayer life, your church life, your discovery life, whatever it is, that's your spiritual goals. Second, your financial goals relates to your earnings, your savings, your investments. Anything dealing with finances, anything dealing with money is in that thing. You need a new car, it's financial goals, right? So self-improvement, any skills, any activity that will give you new skills and new knowledge, pursuing growth opportunities, that's self-improvement. So fourth is professional goals. This is basically your work, your career goals. How do you basically serve others? That's the goal there. And you could have, when it's professional, maybe I should change that, is really serving other goals. That's probably better, because when you serve others, money happens. I will tell you, solve other people's problems, money will happen. And so the fifth one is health goals. Where are you physically? Where are you emotionally? These are things related to your health. And then sixth goal, family. What are the relationships that are supportive, meaningful in your life? Your family relationships. Then 7, your community goals. How do you contribute to the community? Or how do you support a cause that you believe in? And so this is very important, because we don't exist in a vacuum. There's other people around us. And no matter what, even if you were a lawyer, well, you hang out with the lawyers. If you're a business, you belong to the chamber. And so, if you go to church, you believe in God, you go to church. You don't forsake the assembly of the brethren. These are the 7 goals. And I want to ask you right now, where are you in these 7 goals? I'll write down honestly, where are you in your spiritual goals? Where are you in your financial goals? Where are you in your self-improvement goals, professional goals, your health goals, your community goals? I just stop right now and just going to write down. Am I praying? Am I, have I read the Bible? Have I done this? Have I done that? How much money do you have in the bank on the financial goals? How much money you're making? How much is in your 401k? Oh, do you have debt? Then that's negative. How much negative income do you have? Self-improvement. Do you have a degree? Do you have a high school diploma? Are you pursuing some type of trade? Are you, what are you doing with your self-improvement? Are you reading books? Are you building your library? Professional goals. What is your career? What is the problem that you were made to solve? What are you doing right now to help others in your giftings? Your health goals. What is your current weight? How much do you weigh? What is your physical condition like? Where are you emotionally? What are the stuff that you've done to deal with trauma in your life? Have you forgiven your parents? Come on. We should always forgive our parents. It just makes life a little better. The earlier you do it, the easier life will be, I think. So family goals. Where are you with your family? How supportive are you with the relationships? Are there breakdowns in your family? Could it be better? Your community goals. What are you doing in the community? Are you volunteering? Are you, participating? So I want you to write down an answer in each of these categories. And be truthful about your strengths and the area of improvement. And so the next exercise is the exercise that I talked to you about earlier. And so what I want you to do is take a sheet of paper, and so you're going to basically break this pieces of paper in a top half and a bottom half. So anyways, about middle, take the paper, take it landscape, that means the long side, from left to right, and you just draw a line right in the middle from right to left. And then I want you to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns, basic columns that are there that crosses the 2 lines. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to have an exercise, and it's going to be called the 2 spiral exercise. And this is to help you to visualize 2 potential futures. And so what I want to just highlight an example that I learned from Tony Robbins, and it's so relevant during our, Christmas time here, this time that I find myself in. And it's the Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge. And what's the basic premise of the whole movie? It's about him being visited, very, let's say, wicked man at the start, very harsh man, and he's visited by 3 ghosts, the ghosts of past, present, and future. And what these ghosts basically did was create a visual representation of the future of 2 potential realities. And that's what I want to help you think about is, is that if the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future showed up and took you into the future and showed you what, if you continue to do what you're doing, how your life will be, listen, you would come back to present time and change your life. I just finished watching It's a Wonderful Life by Jimmy Stewart. And what's the premise? This man had all these opportunities, these desires, these visions, these dreams, and yet they were always changed at the last moment. And he always thought his life didn't really add up to anything. And then finally, when there's some, horrible, scandal that was about to happen, and he was involved in it with money being lost, he basically wished he wasn't alive. And then the angel showed up and said, "Oh, that's a great idea. Why don't I just make you not alive again?" And that's what happened. And then, Jimmy Stewart ends up running through the town and realizing that everything has changed. His brother was never saved. His brother actually saved a group of men in the war. All those folks died. All these people had horrible lives. And the fact of the matter is, we do have impact like that. And we do have impact. Our actions today have impact in the future. And if we take, positive actions in our past, those things will reap a reward. And that's the fact of the matter. So this exercise called the 2 spiral exercise is to help you visualize your potential 2 futures. And we're going to start with a downward spiral. And so you got to help me with this. And so a lot of folks don't want to think about things negatively. But listen, this is just an exercise, and I do need you to help me when we talk about the downward spiral. And so what I want you to do is grab that sheet of paper, and the top half, rectangular-wise is downward spiral, and those columns, I want you to do a column that says current column, right? In that current column, I want you so you're going to basically say, first column is called current, next one is called +5, +10, +20, +30, +40. So you're going to have present, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. Okay. So you're going to have present, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You're just going to go all the way down and cross the 2 areas, downward spiral, upward spiral. And so what I want you to do in the present category is put your age. Let's say your age is 30. You write down your 30. And then in the column that says +5, you put 35, you put 40, you put 50, you put 60, and 70. And so your age, that's going to be your age right now. And so let's just kind of start with your present. And we talked about your present, where you're at. And so if you're present, let's say right now spiritually, and I'm just speaking to church-going folks right now, believers that are out there, you're maybe pray once a week. Let's just say 5 years from now you stop even praying, okay? You stop 5 years from now, you just stop praying. You have no desire to read the Bible 5 years from now. 10 years from now, you don't even go to church, right? And just like 20 years from now, let's just put like a little dash because you have no spiritual life, no spiritual. In fact, 30 years from now, let's just put your spiritual life. What happens is you'll hate spiritual people. You hate church people. And then what happens in 40 years? You're just totally cold, right? So let's just, you got to help me. We got it. We're going downward, right? We got downward. You got to help me with everyone is going to be different, right? Everyone starts at a different place. I'll just give you an example of how to carry that through, but I need you to amplify it for yourself. Financial. Let's just say that financial, you have no savings. You got $20,000 of debt. Well, 5 years from now, you're going to have 0 savings and $100,000 of debt. And you just kind of follow that through. 20 years, 30 years. And let's just say 30 years, 20 years, there's a bankruptcy, right? Because the principles that are in place right now are not there to help you, right? And then they're not going to be there in the future to get any better. And so let's talk about your profession, right? Let's say you're not really happy at your job. So five years from now, you've had 2 or 3 different jobs. 10 years from now, you got 7 different jobs, and you're still making the same amount of money as you were before. 20 years from now, you've had a little time of unemployment. 30 years from now, you're working at Walmart, right? Right? And then 40 years from now, you're just living on day-to-day Social Security check. So You see where I'm going with this? I know it's kind of a harsh look at these things, but I want to take you to the downward spiral of the future. That unless you change some things, let's talk about health. Let's say you're overweight. You're overweight. So if you add 5 pounds every year, 5 years from now you'll be put your weight down. Write the number in the current. Right? Let's say it's like 200. So you've been gaining 5 pounds every year. So like 5 years from now, you'll be 225. 10 years from now, you'll be 270, 225, 250. And 20 years from now, it's another 10. Another 50, you'll be 275. And then 3, you'll be 30 years, 325. Guess what? There are no big people who are older. I mean, folks that are overweight, they don't get to those older years. I don't know if you know that. You ever see a morbidly obese person at 90? No, you don't see that. So, in other words, this is going to have an impact in your life. You're going to have a shorter life. And so, if you look at your self-improvement, are you reading? Are you going to school? If you're not reading any books now, you won't be reading any books 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so, there'll be no improvement, right? No self-improvement. And you'll be pretty much stagnant, right? It's so easy to be caught in social media now and those, with those shorts addiction. Hey, there's plenty of things that take your mind. You'll be watching TV all day. So where are you with relationships, right? Where are you in your marriage? Obviously, if you have financial strain, it's going to put a strain in your marriage. I mean, a lot of reasons why people get divorced is for money reasons. And so if you carry forth and you look at 5 years from now, where you're going to be in a relationship. 10 years from now, if you're having trouble now, then be divorced. And what happens when you're divorced? You strain for your family and you end up by yourself. You end up at the end by yourself, lonely. And then community. This is stuff that though may not have such a great impact, but there's so many people that you could have impact. But the end result with community is talk about it's avoid being by yourself. But you want to be in a relationship with people, you want to help people, you want to lead people, you want to the end result when it comes to communities, I always say, I heard a great quote that said that when you're born, you cry and the world rejoices. And we have to have a life that when we die, we rejoice and the world cries, right? You get that? It's like when we're born, the world rejoices and we cry, but when we die, we want the world to cry because we impacted their lives, and we rejoice because we know there's a reward up in heaven for that, for what we do. And so this is why I want you to amplify this negative outcome. This can't just be done, just so quickly. You got to really think about it, and you got to generate the pain for yourself. You got to listen. If you get to a place where you basically got to a place where you're sad and you're crying, I did what I needed to do here. It's to produce an emotional impact of pain and so forth. So what I want you to do, I want you to believe. Listen, you're saying, hey, where is this in the Bible? Why am I doing this? Listen, I'll give you one, Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, he will reap. I'm going to share that with you. Whatever you're sowing, you're going to reap. You smoke a pack of cigarettes, that's going to grow. Everything grows. Alcohol consumption doesn't go down. Listen, I admire folks. There are folks who they drink alcohol like I drink tea. I could drink it if I needed to. I could just to be polite and I'll drink it. But I don't go out and drink it every day. No. I'm going to say we are basically mocking God if we don't believe what the actions we take has some repercussions. It has repercussions. Everything has repercussions. And so if we have repercussions on the negative side, I want to share with you there's repercussions on the positive side if you make some changes. And that's what I want to share with you. It's so easy to make some changes. And when you make the change, they don't have to be major change. They just got to be little changes. But I'm going to give you, some things that you could use to combine changes in different areas to support, a different life. And so let's look at, the bottom, bottom spiral or the upward spiral. And this is where I want you to multiply, amplify the positive outcome of your growth and not underestimate it. That's what I want you to do, is not underestimate it when we talk about the bottom spiral part of it, the bottom half. And so we talked about where you're present. So let's say spiritually, you 5 years from now developed a habit where you're actually, praying, you're reading the Bible. And so 5 years from now, under spiritual, you've really grown in your spiritual understanding. You read the scriptures once. Just say 10 years from now, you've read the scriptures 3 times. You have a very powerful habit. You're really centered when it comes to that. So let's just look at the spiritual side 5, 10, 20 years from now. If you just change your habits slightly now, and how we'll grow. And so I think an older person is really defined by how many times has he read the scriptures, I think. How many times have you read it from beginning to end, right? And, how much time you're spending. And I'm just saying getting radical, you got to spend all day in the scriptures. No, it's a habit. It's basically a habit. And so the same thing goes with your financial goals. So there's so many people that I've recommended, listen, why don't you just send $50 a week to an LA account and just have it taken out. Let's say, oh, no, I don't have the money. But did you get a raise? Did I give you a raise that covered all of that, or cover even more than, blah, 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 blah. And the thing is that if you start now, I remember when I was having financial difficulty, I just started saving $25, $50 a week. Next thing you know, that turned into $5,000. Then I was able to, when the stock market quadrupled to $20,000. And this is the benefit of when you start to apply these habits. And you can say, hey, what are the good habits? Listen, they're all over the place. You could read those, pay your tithes automatically, pay your bills automatically, have your savings done automatically. I know I read this book called The Automatic Millionaire. That was one of the biggest things for me that changed stress. I have all my bills paid for. I don't pay a bill. It's all automatic. It just goes out. Now I double check on it. Maybe every 6 months I'll make it. Sometimes I end up, whoa, hey, electric company, you better send me $800. I overpaid, and a nice payback, right? A savings account. And so self-improvement. You have to, when you want to make a change, if I want to make a change, I have to learn, read a book on it. Like the doctor said I was pre-diabetic, so I watched my sugar intake. Guess what? How many books have I read? 2 or 3, 4 books on just that. And so if I want to improve my life, I want to improve how do I exercise, I start to learn about it myself. I start to read about it, apply those skills. And I share this with you is that if you want to lose weight, hey, when's the last time you read a book on keto diet or paleo? When's the last time you read a cookbook, Mediterranean diet or South Beach diet, right? If you want to make a change in one of these areas, self-improvement is the number one thing that you have to do. Listen, even when I go to fast, and there's sometimes I'll have a long-term fast, like 12, 14 days, 21 days that I've done. And what I've done is right before I start that fast, I'll start learning about the benefits and how your body changes after 7 days, or actually 24 hours, 72 hours, 7 days, 10 days. Your body goes through these unbelievable changes, and that will actually at one stage from like day 7 for day 7, is it? No, for 3, 7, yeah, from day 3 to for 7 days of day 10, your body just starts burning up all kinds of cysts, cancers, whatever you have. So when you start to learn this will motivate you to apply that little change. And when it comes to professional goals, if you look at where are you at today, do you have a heart to serve people? Are there other things that you could do to help other folks with other problems? And you want to write down, listen, you want to be in a place where you move to a career. Ultimately, for 30 years from now, career is when your identity and your job become one. When your identity and your job become one, people know you as this. and this is what you do. That's the ultimate thing. When your identity, your job, that people know what you do and how you solve it, that becomes one. And so that's the ultimate goal that you want 20, 30 years from now, right? Health goals, emotional goals. This is where you're, right now you're working on where you are physically, learning about, hey, diet, learning about, well, hey, what can I eat at McDonald's if I have to go there, right? Learning about this and that. There are ways to get into those places like McDonald's and get out without killing your body, right? Not that you could do it every day. We've already seen the results of what that happens, but what I'm saying is that as you start to make little changes, you'll see, like for instance, as opposed to you gaining 5 pounds, you lose 5 pounds every year. By the time 10 years from now, you're at your ultimate weight, your ultimate health. You're much more physical. You take up these exercises. You're able to climb mountains, right? You're able to do things that you want to do. And this is how you change your life, and you write those positive things down in your relationships, your family goals. What have you, getting back to self-improvement, what books have you taken that will improve your relationship with your wife or your spouse, your husband? What books have you read about that? What books have you read of how you can support the other person, right? Listen, if your wife is going through something, some type of ailment, you should be reading books about that, helping, supporting her in her own, health journey, and that you could be there to support her and understand. And so this is what you do, now, little changes now, right? You could plan out where the end result is that when you get to, 20, 30 years from now, you have a fulfilling relationship with your children, your children's children, your relatives, your family, and you have a wonderful support structure. You're living with each other, great dinners, and then you plan on those things. And then the last one, your community goals. What are you contributing? Let's say that you do support your local church. You do support a chamber cause. What impact does that has plenty of impact, especially if you're in business. It's going to have impact in what you're doing and how you influence others. And that's one of the key things of being a king, is being able to influence and growing in your influence. I mean, that if you looked at Job, he's a man of influence, right? He had influence, and that's where we are going to be men and women of influence. And so when you do the upward spiral, I want that to be the best positive outlook. Your weight drops. Let's say you're morbidly obese, and you go, 5 years from now, you know what? I'm going to do a life-altering operation or something, right? If I don't get change, I'm going to do this. Those are things that you got to basically. These are things that are at your disposal. Yeah, it costs too much money, but you know what? Yeah, you'd rather go out and buy this fancy car for $70,000 than just put $15,000 on a credit card for you could live longer, right? I've heard that. Or I'd rather buy a car than go to college, right? And so you're going to have to make decisions, and yeah, those decisions are going to cost you. But listen, college, if you have to take debt out in college, that's good debt to have, right? Guess what? You'll pay that off. So many young people that I know that got into debt, some that haven't gotten out of it, but the ones that have been serious, been able to pay that debt off way before they're even 30. And this is, if you do, give you an idea. And not only that, being wise in what school you go to. So there's things that could help you, right? Like, and realizing, listen, there are things that can improve your look, improve how you feel about yourself. I had very bad teeth. I had actually 2 gaps. My front teeth were pressed together. When I was 30 years old, it was just, I looked like a mess. I looked buck teeth and this, and I'm like, you know what? I'm getting braces. I got braces at 32 years old. And so if that's something that you need to make you, improvement, hey, get some braces. Right? That, if your hair is falling out, get some hair. Who cares? You're gonna, you'll be able to afford it. You put that up and put it the goals. You're losing your hair. Guess what? Hair transplant. Come on now. And so whatever you do, I want to share this with you. It's like, there's a verse that says in Ecclesiastes, it says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." And so what does that mean? Cast your bread upon the waters, and you'll find it after many days. Because the nation of Israel, what it would do is that they would cast their bread, meaning their seed. Let's just say it's a wheat seed. They would drop it in the Niles. The Niles would just take it. And then at certain times of the year, the banks would overflow. And what happened was that seed would just like seed the banks, and the water would seed. And so then when the nation of Israel would then move forward in time, they would encounter a harvest already. And that's the one thing I got to let you know, is that you're casting bread upon the water and everything that you have. And you have a choice. So you have a choice. Do I feed the bad habit, right? Let me just kind of tell you, do I feed the bad habit? And a lot of us, all we do is we feed that habit every day. And so I want you to imagine your bad habits are wolves that show up at your back door. And guess what? Every day you toss a mistake. Every day you toss a mistake. And they are so strong that they just are there to just one day they're going to just want to take a piece out of you, right? They scratch up your doors, or big marks on the doors. And why? Because you're feeding them every day. And this is what I want you to do with your bad habits. Stop feeding your bad habits. Stop feeding them. And guess what? Yeah, they'll be there the next day. They'll be there the next week. Those wolves will show up the next week. Those wolves will show a week after. Listen, you're smoking, you're drinking, those kind of things. Stop it. Just stop smoking. Stop drinking. Stop getting high on a daily basis. Just stop feeding those wolves. Because those are the wolves that are that are waiting there 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. Though that's what I want to share with you. Stop feeding them. Now, guess what? They're not going to go away so quick. They're not. They're not going to go. When I stopped smoking, that didn't go away. When I stopped drinking, I still decide sometimes I have a beer, right? I haven't drank in 30 years, 32 years I haven't had a drink. But I had to stop feeding those wolves. And that's what I want to share with you. Stop feeding those wolves. You can have a fresh start. Even if you made a major mistake, today is a fresh start. And I want to share this with you, is like commit to small and consistent change. And just a little change in these areas every day. So when you realize that if you continue with your bad habits, where are you going to be 20 or 30 years from now? As I always say, look, sometimes when I talk to people, I say, hey, let this person of the future, come. I wish that person could come in and sit down with us and talk to you. And what that person in the future would be you to tell yourself, right? And the basic thing that person is going to say is, stop these small little bad habits. And so that 2 spiral exercise, I hope that helped you, to gain some clarity, in places where you have to take action. And so as we wrap up, I want to ask you a question. What are the consequences of you staying the same for another year? Think about it. A year from now, let's just say if there's no change at all, you're going to be 1 year older. 1 year older, right? And guess what? That's time we can't get back. A rich man who was on his deathbed never says, I wish I would have made a greater investment. They always say, I wish I had more time. That's the question that I want to ask you. What are the consequences of you staying in the same stage for another year? And then let me ask you this question. What is one small step that you could take today to align with your ideal future? When I mentioned those things, which is the one that you said, this one impacts me? Hey, is it alcohol? Is it, recreational marijuana? Is it this? Is it that? Is it pornography? I forgot to mention, that's something that you partake in. Listen, and if you're married, guess what? I've seen just divorce. That's an automatic 5-year divorce route, right? And so these are things that you could just stop right now. Take one small step. Stop to feed them. Stop feeding those wolves is what I want to share this with you. And so, God He has a plan for us. He has a plan for us. It's not like, and that plan, we're involved in that plan, right? It's not like God laughs at our plan, as I heard someone say in a non-biblical proverb that's out there that says, man makes his plan, but God laughs. Now, why would God laugh? Why would God laugh? No, God would not laugh at your plans. Because you know what? He has a plan for us. It's a plan for peace and not evil. And he wants to give us a future and a hope. And so it says, I know the plans I have for you. Right? If we could connect with the plans that God has for us, if we could connect with that plan of peace, a plan of good, that future and that hope is for us. He's given it to us. And I want to share that with you. This is given it to you. And so I want you to take that first step today. Write down that 1, 2, 3 habits, that positive habits that align with your future. Listen, it's so easy to just change one little habit, right? Get up early, right? Spend some time meditating. Hey, take a walk, right? Go to the health club. Read this book start reading on a regular basis. And so this is something, save a small percent of your income. Start a fitness routine. And so I just wanted to thank you for you turning in to the GoldMind Podcast. And listen, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. And if you can, go to my YouTube channel at Bennett.Santana for more tools and inspiration to help you transform, scale, and thrive. Until the next time, I just want to say to you, never give up and always build up. Thank you again.